Hello there and welcome. So in this edition of Dashcam Incidents, we're just going to look at some things that have happened with other road users that aren't the best, aren't the safest, and they're not, as we always say, not there to shame anybody, but they're there to learn from and to realise when things are perhaps not as good as they should be. And if we can be aware of what other road users are capable of, especially as motorcyclists, we can hopefully keep ourselves safe. But you know, it applies to all classes of road users, and I'm definitely noticing over the years that people just seem to be taking less and less responsibility for their own safety. Having said that, I was watching some very interesting videos on YouTube not so long ago from the 1970s, and some of those problems seem to be exactly the same as we experience now. I just think in some areas we've just got more traffic than we used to have, so it's highlighting them, and we're seeing them more on a regular basis. So in this first clip, you can see a vehicle here decides to overtake across solid white line with the hatchings, and of course you're not supposed to go across those unless in an emergency. It's protecting the junction. It's particularly risky to overtake a large vehicle such as this one that's being used here, because there may be a smaller vehicle in front that suddenly decides to turn right. It's just worth waiting, being patient. You can see there's a small area dual carriageway coming up now. These next clips just highlight a driving style and an attitude to driving that is very unhelpful. It's careless, dangerous, reckless, use what words you like really, completely inappropriate. There's no need for it. It doesn't prove anything and it doesn't impress anybody. And actually, in real terms, it doesn't get you to your destination any quicker. You can see with the Land Rover here, despite the fact he's in excess of the 50-mile-an-hour temporary speed limit, he's weaving and straddling lanes just to make that extra little bit of progress. He probably feels quite safe in a very large vehicle. Just because you're in a larger vehicle doesn't mean you can bully other road users. It's just inappropriate and not necessary. This clip is just a little reminder about joining dual carriageways. We've covered this before on a previous video. As you come down the slip road, don't expect to be able to join. Moderate your speed until you see the gap. Yes, it's nice if the vehicle in lane 1 moves across and allows you to join, but in this situation here, they can't. Because as you can see in the rear view, there's a vehicle coming up in lane 2. This was pretty close. Didn't need to be. It's just poor planning. Notice how the moped rider does some pretty big rear observations, causing a little bit of wobbling. And as the car in front starts to come to a stop, they have to brake fairly firmly to avoid going into the back of it. This is just a reminder about rear observations. Make sure they don't affect the balance of the bike, and make sure they don't distract from what's going on ahead of you. It's another good reason for keeping away from the vehicle in front. Lots of talk recently about pedestrians being vulnerable road users, and they are. But they're not helping themselves. I remember back in the 70s, and some people who are my sort of age will probably remember the green cross code. Stop, look, listen, and when you cross, keep looking both ways. Well, this is a classic of what I see very, very frequently with pedestrians these days. Wander across the road, and if I can't see you, surely you're not there. And in fact, let's compound it by being on the phone. It's dangerous to cross the road like that, and you're putting your safety in everyone else's hands. And it's the same with the pedestrian here. Back to the traffic, on a blind bend, wearing headphones, completely oblivious. It shows as well why we mustn't go herring round blind bends, because you never know what's around the corner. But ultimately, as a pedestrian, you're a very soft target, like a motorcyclist. In this clip, spot the stealth bikers. It's great camouflage. Let's look at that again. So you can see here that the clothing camouflages beautifully with the dark areas. There's no reflective clothing, there's no lights whatsoever, and I'm sure these cyclists would be quite upset if someone knocked them off the bike. However, they're asking for trouble really. This is absolutely not taking responsibility for your own actions, and okay, they may have got caught out late having not got lights or anything, but they're still taking a huge risk. This clip here is what I would consider an unnecessary overtake. Notice how the white van coming towards us conceals the vehicle that's moving from lane 1 to lane 2 into the potential path of the motorcycle. If that car was a bit quicker, that could have very easily been a bit of a collision. Better to be 5 minutes late than dead on time. It's also worth observing the second motorcycle that comes up in lane 1. Doesn't do much of a job of observations on the roundabout, nor lane discipline, bearing in mind there's a car about. And also, he does get very close to the other motorcycle as well. This style of riding might seem like making good progress and quite invigorating, however it's risky and it's leaving things to chance. We see a motorcyclist coming from our left at relatively high speed, and I say high speed because it's high for the circumstances. The speed limit is 30, but going across a junction like this at 30 isn't very safe. So we'll approach that junction from the same direction as the motorcyclist did. You may just see the perspective. So there's the junction. You can already see it's very blind to the right with that white building sticking out, and the view is minimal. So I'm at 26 mile an hour and a 30, and I'm going to reduce further. I'm going to go for a second gear for flexibility. I've got to watch that car there, and I've just got to watch that junction there. At this point I can decide. So I was down to 18 miles an hour, and it's not unusual for cars to stick their noses out there to get a view because they have to, and some people will commit before they have a full view. So if you go through at that sort of speed at 30 or plus, you're in bother. So that's why we always say slow down on the approach to a junction, especially if that junction is shielded and you cannot see the adjoining road. You'll notice also that the motorcyclist isn't wearing gloves, and if he does come off the bike, that's going to be particularly painful. So thank you for watching those clips. I hope they're useful to you and just highlight some of the things that can go on the roads that can bring risk to you, that you can eliminate just with a little bit of care and a little bit of thought. So until next time, ride safe and take care.